Hey, good morning. Good morning to all of our listeners out there with courageous conviction. And this is Eric and myself, Jeff. And we are here this morning on a beautiful uh, morning. I would just say it's beautiful. It's been cold here where we're at, and I'm sure it's cold where Eric's at right now. It's kind of the winter time. Um, and we wanted to get back to that original conversation of the Doctrine and Covenants, section 88, 77 through 81. We've got some interesting things to talk about and what those scriptures mean to us and what do you think there, Eric? How are you doing today?
Good, bud. Good. And had a good Christmas, and you guys did too. We were talking and spent time with family. This is good. New Year's jumping off, and had a couple weeks where we weren't able to record, but that's not going to be something that we let pass too many times in the future unless we're on a deathbed. Even then, we'll try to record. Um, hey, I like Section 88, Jeff, and I've been kind of one just kind of saying, I think we should talk about this, and I want to kind of go down this rabbit hole. And you came up with this stuff by Elder Widsoe. And before we jump into this, but Elder Widsoe in the church is known as one of the great historians and one of those who knew the doctrine of the church. And I think that's something that many people have to understand too when they want to read some of Cleon Skousen's works. That
Hmm.
Cleon Skousen's basis, his whole foundation was built for 3 years under Elder Widsoe because he was his mission president, right?
Hmm.
And then
I didn't
from
know that.
there came home and kept a good relationship. And so that he was asked to write certain books, and one was on the intelligences, was something I wanted to get into one day too. But on Section 88, that rabbit hole we kind of go down today, I thought that's really good, that information you found on that. And I just think it's important we understand what our responsibility is as members of the church. A lot of people just show all we're hearing across the pulpit now is just have faith. Just go to church, go to sacrament meeting, have faith, and love everybody, and everybody will be fine. Well,
Yeah.
we know that's not true. Brigham was, like you said before, was very much a matter of fact guy, and there's in the Journal of Discourses of Brigham Young, there's a talk where he gave saying, hey, if you think that you can sit down and do nothing, and that God is just going to come and do it for you, you got nothing coming. It doesn't work that way. You have to do everything you can do, and then you're blessed.
Yeah.
And just, well, I don't know, Jeff. You kind of your thoughts on when you were reviewing for Section 88, how, getting ready for this podcast. What are your feelings on it?
Well, I think that the section 88 there, especially, in that verse 81 where it says that we are responsible in teaching each other. And that means we can't just teach, we've got to be able to learn ourselves. Elder Woodstow, he pointed out that theology is not the only subject in which the elders should be interested in. So he says we should be studying other things, you know, things both in heaven and in the earth, which that could be, you know, astronomy. It could be farming or cultivation of the soil. And we got to understand history. And the church right now has had a big push, about us understanding history. They've been very transparent. Historians have been given a green light to come out and not just and use different, narratives, like the volcano erupting during the time that the Smith family had to move from Connecticut to New York. You know, um, so we need to understand those things ourselves, and then we can talk about them, with others. And going back to what the prophet said, a few conferences ago, that these last days, unless we are in tune with the Spirit, we're not gonna do well.
It's
And
gonna be
so
tough
it
for
all
us.
comes to that. Yeah, you
Yeah,
just gotta have that element of the Spirit in our lives, in our daily lives, with our daily decisions.
yeah,
I'm
and
excited. Go ahead.
yeah, and I couldn't agree more. It means we have to do something, and I think the apathy right now in the church, especially in the LDS church, that I think the apathy is from the whole lockdown period. It's gotten worse. It was already bad before that. we go to elders quorum now, and we talked about this one day when we were off air a few weeks back. That like in my elders quorum and some of the elders quorums I've gone to, what it is just a read of the last general conference and then talk about it, and I thought to myself, well, not everything that's said across the pulpit is doctrine. Why are we going to elaborate every one of these talks? And we don't have that dialogue before where we used to actually kind of, sometimes it got almost, I won't say heated, because there was always that spirit of brotherhood there, but we got into differing opinions. And I believe that's how the 12, they don't just all just agree magically. We can sit down, and even now the current 12 we have and the 15 we have, there's some real great discrepancy in almost some polarization in what they think or believe in with just the general authorities we have now. Yet they try to come to something that's a united decision, and that's the one that they move forward with, right? And I think that part of the problem we have is, how do we make that decision? How do we get with the Spirit, and how can the Spirit testify to us if we don't make an effort to try to understand other things as well? The whole CES program, the whole church education system, is based off of this scripture for the most part, being that the idea, and I heard Elder Holland speak, I think it was maybe 2 graduations ago, talking about when he was defending that controversial speech, that apparently controversial, when he's defending the fact that BYU will maintain its principles, whether it's, whether they actually pull any certification from BYU as a, recognized university in the United States of America. He said, it wouldn't matter. We will still continue to educate the saints and those who want to come and get truthful education. And I think that that's where we need to be today, Jeff. Why are so many people living in fear? Because they don't understand what's happening, and they don't understand the options. Now that option, that hope, is spiritual, right? That's going to come more of a spiritual understanding. I listen to certain sources, these podcasters, and I know they're good sources. They proved themselves during COVID when they were just getting blasted. It was all, just misinformation, disinformation, whatever those words have been created to be, this Marxist, this neo-Marxist slander that they want to throw at people who try to defend freedom and truth, and they proved themselves. A lot of them got banned from YouTube. And in the end, everything they were showing come out to be the truth. And so they stood by their testimonies, and I gained that respect. So it was good. So these sources that are of the world too, that I like to listen to, socioeconomic type stuff, that's important to understand, because I got to make decisions every day how to prepare for what's coming. If I don't know where the economy is going, I want to sell my place. Well, now's not the time to sell, because if I rebuy, I'm going to be paying 3 times, 4 times more in mortgages than I am right now.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like those kind of things you got to make understanding to keep the stress off a relationship. So I think with that said, I mean, my feelings on it, and I think this is why it's so important that we have to have that knowledge and actually edify each other. I don't feel edified in elders quorum anymore. And I know I'm not the only one crying that. I know if there's others out there that are actually actively doing things about it, like we're trying to do now. So I guess I'm not crying about it. I guess that's my complaint. I'd like to see, I shouldn't say my complaint. I'd like to see us get back to that brotherhood we had when we were younger. And the funny thing is, we had that brotherhood when we were younger, and you and I somehow managed to get out there in left field. And we don't have it anymore, and yet we're back. And we're like, hey, where's it at? We missed that,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, elders quorum, I think those talks that we're going over, I think it really depends on the quorum, the body of the quorum, what people are willing to deviate from, what's necessary, to discuss. And I think maintaining the spirit, sometimes we forget about that, but keeping the spirit of dialogue and avoiding division, if it becomes contentious. But I think people are so worried about offending anyone, nobody wants to say anything, because there's so much division right now, even, in
But
the
is that
church.
right, Jeff? I mean, we're not being truthful and honest.
Well,
And
no,
I'm not talking about cruelty or anything like that. We're just certain things that can be said just can be taken so wrong. And that's not how it's supposed to. You can't edify each other that way. That's not
no,
dialogue.
I agree. We want to go back to something where people are less offended, um, because people are getting offended. They're not participating in dialogue. I think that's led to some people leaving the church, and other people, they're that are getting offended or leaving the church, what we really need to have is a healthy, debate. And, I think that we got to get back to the basics. It really has to be led by the Spirit. The quote that says that God doesn't require all of his servants to become doctors, professors, or even profound students. He just expects us to know a little bit of everything to be able to magnify our callings and become ambassadors, and represent ourselves as being, servants of Christ. I know that in my calling right now, in my ministering calling, and I just had that change a little bit. It's been interesting going out and seeing people, and some people are active, some people aren't, and it's helped me to just you know set some things aside right now and serve. Um, but I think that's just because I'm afraid, just like everybody else, to come out and speak out politically, because there's so much division, and I don't want to push anybody away from the church. I want people to come back, and we need to be able to become unified and be able to have that conversation. We're not at that point right now.
And not going down this rabbit hole, but I think what you just touched on, Jeff, is a feeling of like my current bishop, right? I think he's so afraid to say things, and even say things like, "Hey, you need to be doing your food storage. You guys should really be preparing yourselves," and in following up and reminding, because people just don't want to hear it, or they get bent out of shape over it. And even now, food storage is considered hoarding. Even in the country I just left,
Yeah.
I had to hide my water, my extra gas, and the fact that I had food storage. And the fear was, Jeff, not from my neighbors. The fear was the members of the church. We got locked down. We got shut down there. The natives rise up and overthrow the country, right? And so they were shut down almost a month, trying to break the water lines. And so people would have water, things of that nature. And food was not getting to the grocery stores. My family was down there. I was here. Both times it happened, I happened to be out of the country. My family was stuck in there, my wife and my children. And,
Mhm.
but I tell you where I feared the members, because they knew I had the food storage, knew I had the water, and I feared them telling somebody else.
Right.
Because my experience in Costa Rica was when the times that they broke into my home were, in fact, the guards that were actually paid to guard my home were the
Right.
ones who would call their friends up. So he's gone, he's leaving for 2 days, get over here,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because there's that lack of knowledge, a lack of understanding of how we edify, that then we in a time of crisis, we just turn to people to tell us what to do. And then once we can't even meet that satisfaction, we revert back to our primal natures, and that's just
Yeah.
taking it, right?
Caveman.
Yeah,
Caveman
yeah,
stuff.
exactly. And so I don't know. So I think that Section 88 really is this call to the Lord saying, "Hey, if you want to magnify your calling, then these are the areas of knowledge you need to have in these areas."
Hmm. Well, the Lord considers them necessary,
You've just finished listening to Creative Conviction. Jeff and I, we put a lot of work into this, and our life's experience has been a lot of effort to try to get back to where we are now. We hope that you can learn something from us and share with us what your thoughts are down below. We'll see you in our next video.